You're listening to Brave Girls with Tracy M., where we choose to empower you to be a better leader, mentor, and coach in the world. We'll share stories of people who have achieved great heights by overcoming adversity and rising to the challenge, all while pursuing their passions. These courageous people will inspire you to have faith in yourself and take bold action. Right here with the host of Brave Girls, Tracy M.
Episode 34, Choose Yourself with Jennifer Currie Sheffield. Meet my very wise and beautiful friend, Jennifer Currie, on this episode of the podcast, and learn how she was able to heal herself by painting after her husband passed away when she was just 29 years old and her daughter was 2. Her Brave Girl story is inspiring and uplifting, and I'm sure you'll love what she has to say about processing grief and moving forward when tragedy strikes. Jennifer shares information about the soul coaching and artistic work that she has been led to do in the world today. She uses her intuitive gifts, along with her training in reading tarot cards and Akashic records, to help women align with their soul purpose and clear out any negative energy in order to move forward with more freedom, grace, and ease. Her decision to invest in herself was a pivotal point in her career that completely changed the trajectory of her work life. We talk about getting help to get off the hamster wheel when you want to be happy and you want to live a meaningful life. Her teachers appeared when she was ready to be the student. We also talk about the importance of making a commitment to having a daily meditation practice and journaling to build trust with your highest self. Originally from the South, Jennifer shares how she ended up moving to the Berkshires of Western Massachusetts with her daughter and why she loves living amongst the creative community there. I met Jennifer several years ago when she spoke at a women's retreat that I attended there, and I've been a fan of hers from the start. I hope you'll learn a thing or two from my friend Jennifer and realize that you always need to choose yourself and trust your intuition. So welcome to Brave Girls with Tracy M. Today I have Jennifer Currie with me, and we're going to be talking about Jennifer's story and what she's doing out in the world. I first met Jennifer several years ago where she spoke at a conference, and I just think that Jennifer is an amazing artist and person, and so I just really wanted to have her on the show. So welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. So I know your website is just Jennifer Currie, CURRIE.com, and that's where you live on the internet and have your offerings. So, and you call yourself a soul purpose coach for empowered creativity. So talk a little bit about what that exactly means and the types of things that you do with your clients.
Okay. Well, yeah, I do. I call myself a soul coach, because I'm an artist, but I also do a lot of work using my intuition. So when I'm coaching somebody, we're doing a lot of practical coaching, but I really feel like it's important to have it grounded in, what's my soul purpose? What's aligned for me? Like, I really love taking people under the hood, so to speak, to kind of dig a little bit deeper and find out, making sure that their vision, the things that they're wanting to create, that it's really coming from them, that it's coming from their heart, it's a true heart's desire, and then helping them find out what their soul gifts are so they can really be making action steps that are super aligned, because I find that this is when the dots start to connect, when we're in alignment. And then a huge component of the work I do with people is helping them also clear the blocks, because I find that when we get into that process, I feel like business is a spiritual journey. So I feel like once we get into that groove and we're doing all these action things, a lot of this stuff that's kind of deeper, it's like inside, it's not external obstacles, it's like the internal stuff, the things that make us procrastinate, the stuff that makes us really feel a lot of fear, maybe. Visibility is a huge one that I work with people around. This is the kind of stuff that we can get stalled out, we can feel stuck around. And so I do a lot of stuff with my clients to help them. We clear that. We actually get in and energetically do work to clear those things so that they can then move forward with more freedom and ease and grace.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. That's great. I'm sure you see fear, doubt, and worry, procrastination, like all of those things that people
Um,
maybe don't even realize that those are things that are blocking them. So, what do you tell somebody if they don't know what their soul's purpose is, or they think they don't know?
well, that's where my intuition comes in, and I get in and I have processes where I go and look into their Akashic records. That's one of the places that I go and do a lot of readings from, intuitively. And everybody has a soul gift. Everybody is gifted. So we can look that up and find out what it is, and then start unpacking it. Like, what does that look like in your life? You know, because everybody has soul gifts, but the way we get to express them are so unique and authentic and individual for each person. So yeah, so we really
What
tap into the highest self and get that wisdom, that inner wisdom, to be the guide. So I actually help them connect with that for themselves too.
So, so some of our listeners may not know what Akashic records are. So maybe can you just explain that
Yeah,
in the layman's terms?
yes, the Akashic records are, it's not a physical place. Okay. It's a energetic realm that we can access intuitively, but it holds the records for every soul's experience. So when you access that realm, I guess is a good way to call it, it's kind of like going into the energetic library and pulling the book of your soul down and like finding out, okay, what have I been up to? What have I been doing? What are my experiences? What are my gifts? How was I created? That information's available. And
So
yeah,
you've
so
trained
I
in
feel
that.
like it's very empowering to know what that is, because then it's like your true north. It's like you have your compass pointing to you to true north. You can always use that information to orient yourself
Right.
wherever you are. Yeah.
Right. So kind of let's rewind a little bit back to your story that sort of has led you to what you've been doing over the last, say, 10 years or whatever, and the journey that you've gone on to get to this point to now be the teacher and the guide and the mentor. So
Okay.
let's
Yeah.
go back to, I think I saw on your website you grew up in the South, but now you're in the Berkshires. You had gotten, checked all the boxes, going to college, got the husband, got the baby, got the house, and then kind of everything kind of fell apart at some point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, because I didn't always do Akashic record readings. This is actually, been a journey, because that's not where I started from. I wasn't growing up in a place where this was the kind of stuff that, people were talking about, but I got married pretty young. I was totally madly in love with my husband. He was my college sweetheart. And when we had just had our baby, I have one daughter, a few months after she was born, he was diagnosed with cancer. And so everything did kind of fall apart. Like, everything seemed like it was just lining up so beautifully. I was so happy. And then this diagnosis was devastating. And it was not that cancer diagnosis is never a good thing, but it was a pretty dire, prognosis from the very beginning. So that just kind of kicked off, a period of difficulty, a lot of grief, a lot of struggle, a lot of pain. And after he passed, he went through treatment for about 2 years, and then he passed away. It was really through that process and on the other side of it that I started realizing, like, okay, the way I'm doing things right now, or have been up to this point, this is not going to work going forward. Like, I have to get more tuned into my intuition. I need to learn to trust myself more. I have a baby. I'm a single mom now. I really felt like I need to get empowered. And at that particular time, I was really young. I was only 29 when he died. So up to that point, I hadn't really been fully empowered in my life. And so I was also in a kind of crisis situation. So I really did find reconnecting with my creativity was probably the opening. That was like the door. I had a background in the arts. I had been studying art history. I'd been in graduate school, getting a degree in that. but I hadn't been making things. And I found that, this was something I'd always loved. It's part of why I had gone into studying art history, but I had kind of left the actual hands-on art it was really in the background. And it was super healing for me. Like that was something that I kind of turned to even when he was ill. Like when I had free time, I started painting again. I started doing some of that kind of stuff. And it was those quiet moments of just being absorbed in something that really lit me up and made me happy. That was like a balm. That was a healing balm for my life at that time. And it's when I really started to listen more inwardly, because up until that point, I'd really been trained to kind of look outward for information, look outward for wisdom, go to the authority that's outside of you. That's where, you can find out what you need to do. But I was really kind of disoriented in that way. Like I had kind of forgotten to look inward for the wisdom. And then after he passed away, there were several things that kind of unfolded where I really felt like I'd made like I knew what I needed to do. And then the outer authority said, no, you should do this. And I did that thing that I was being told to do instead of what I felt inside. And I could see it so clearly. This is not working. This is not taking me where I want to go. And how do I build up that trust and reconnect with my, with that wisdom that is inside of me. I think at that time, I wasn't even sure if I had wisdom inside of me, but I knew that I knew that I was doing things that weren't working. So that was kind of the catalyst for the whole spiritual journey of, looking inward, just, really seeking healing too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just love your work. I think you're a very talented artist with a very unique look and feel to the products that you put out into the world. So I want to compliment you. And I want our audience to look into your art and the paintings that you do, because they're just absolutely beautiful. And it's just a unique look to them. So I'm so glad that you did tap back into that, because you're putting your art out into the world and it's helping people. And it's just beautiful. I don't even know how to describe it other than beautiful.
Tracy, thank you so much. I'm blushing over here.
Yeah. You have just a unique style, and the palette that you use, and I think on Instagram you'll put like pictures of like, I'm working on this, and it's like as it's in progress, and then like to watch it all unfold. So that's just, I think that's great. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, one of the things that you put on your website that people have given you testimonials about is these soul portraits and soul realignment readings. So what exactly is that? Like,
okay. Well, I kind of do like the soul. I'll talk about the soul realignment. I've kind of touched on it. I mean, that's where I get information from a client. I sit down before we even get on the phone. I open up their records. It's almost like I'm going in and doing research on who you are at soul level. And so there's a lot of information that I put together to tell you about your soul profile, is what I call it. It's like, all these gifts and talents and things that, your life lessons, your, how connected are you to your highest self? How could you be more connected to that? What are your intuitive gifts? Like that's kind of the stuff that we unpack for that part. And then I love doing those. And I often suggest people start with that, because I also go in and look at like, so what are the blocks? What are the things that have really been, keeping you from utilizing and fully accessing the gifts that are available to you? So we kind of look at what the possibility is, what's available, but most people are not using their soul gifts. They're not fully accessing them. They've got, imprints that are really, I call them karmic imprints that are actually can sometimes make us unaware of our gifts. Like we sort of forget what they are. They filter that out. Or we kind of find ourselves in loops where we keep making choices that sort of, don't lead to good results or lead us to procrastination, or we get, you can know that there's something like that going on when you have kind of you just see a pattern that's emerging, and it's not really a working pattern, but you kind of keep going, how did I end up here again? That's what I'm looking at. What's the underneath, what's the root system that's actually causing that tendency or that pattern to show up, and we clear it. So it's literally cleared from your soul's records, and we can do this because we are divine beings. We have free will, and we've actually created these things. We just don't always remember that we created them. We don't know that we created them consciously. So it's very deep in the subconscious and unconscious layers a lot of times. So that's a huge part of that reading. And I do that clearing because I find that when you can start cleaning that stuff up and moving that stuff energetically, the actions that you take, you still need to take actions. You still need to have vision and intention and all these things that we hear about in terms of, how to manifest well. But when you can remove those energetic blocks, you'll find that your results and, the ease with which you get from point A to point B can actually really be accelerated, and you can end up having a much more joyful experience with things.
Is it things like I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough, or I need safety, or we perceive safety in a certain thing?
Yeah, those are great examples. We could have imprints of fear that are causing us to, really feel kind of irrational. I mean, we may actually be judging ourselves for feeling this way, thinking like, why am I so scared every time I don't know one that's really common is public speaking. I think that's a pretty common fear, but for some people that can just be like, they would just never do it in a million years because it would be so debilitating that they just couldn't even get past that. And then, but they may be really well-spoken people. They may even have gifts in that area of being able to speak, and their gifts may flow through their ability to language things and write. I mean, so if there's an imprint that's causing a lot of fear around that, that's going to be messing with your ability to connect the dots to use your soul gifts. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking for. And that's the type of thing that can come up. And it's very unique to each person. So there's a lot of ways that these things can be showing up. Sometimes it's a sense of over responsibility. Sometimes there's guilt is a big one, that comes up. People feel guilty. And so that will cause us to get into loops and patterns in our relationships. Maybe it has nothing to do with anything we did, but we just kind of go into default mode of feeling guilty, that type of thing. That can really have an impact on how empowered we show up in our interactions with people. We might kind of dim ourselves down if we have imprints around being afraid of our power. We'll dial ourselves down. We might feel like it's not okay for us to be bright and shiny and show up in the world, because it might mean that somebody else has to be small, if we get to be big, that kind of stuff. These are not truths. This is just stuff that we kind of build in, and belief systems. And sometimes it's really not even conscious. Like, we're not walking around thinking this way. It's just stuff that's underneath the surface that's causing us to feel really uncomfortable. And so we alter our course because we're trying to avoid the discomfort. So yeah, so you can see, like, it's a big topic, and in a reading for somebody, we're looking at the very specifics of that person and how those things might be showing up for them. And we're energetically clearing it so that they can now, and then looking at, okay, so what are new things that you want to do now that this is cleared, so that you can start grounding a new pattern, coming into a new way of doing things. And so that's a lot of that's kind of in a nutshell, what I do with people. And you asked me about the soul portrait. So like, when I do soul portraits, I do that reading. That's part of a soul portrait process. And then I take the soul gifts and the soul profile and all this information that I've looked up and that we've spent time talking about. And I'm really visual. So I can I I intuitively kind of create a work of art that is not only visually representational of what I'm seeing, but it's vibrationally sort of imprinted in a positive way. Like it's activated, maybe is a better word, with the energy of your soul's essence. So it kind of becomes like a sacred object. That's the way I see these soul portraits, like a sacred object that you have, that's not just a beautiful picture to look at, but actually is even helping you hold and like align with that vibration of your soul's essence.
Right, because I would imagine that once somebody goes through that, it's like, okay, they walk away after they've worked with you. Now what, right? And it's like you said, it's creating a new pattern. Now that that's cleared, like say it's visibility, and maybe one of your gifts is public speaking and teaching, and you're here. Part of your soul's purpose is to teach others something, and then but you resist, up to now, maybe you've resisted seeking out opportunities to use your gift. But then once that's all cleared, then maybe one of the things that you need to do is to actually find those opportunities and feeling comfortable, and then sort of rinse and repeat, getting more courage. And it could even be that not only just the visibility, but like fear of the critics, and like toughening yourself up a little bit to, you're not going to be for everyone, but the people that you are here to serve, you're going to be it.
Exactly. Yeah. Working that muscle so you become, and there could be imprints around that too, like fear of judgment. But, even once you've cleared these things, you're exactly right. Going into situations, and this is why it's a journey, right? Because knowing your gift is like just a part of it. Then, we want to put that into action somehow. And that's when I'm coaching people, that's where I feel like that's why I feel like that can be really valuable too. It's like, okay, let's look at what's here, and now let's get a series of, let's work together in a container over a period of time so that you can get that support. We can keep checking back in. We can course correct along the way, and really learn, because I think that's part of the muscle too, is learning to remember to check in with your soul gifts, right? Learning to go, oh, right, and because if we've been in old default patterns for a really long time, we have to do something new to break the pattern, even when the imprints are cleared. It just will be a lot easier once the imprints are cleared, because it's often those imprints that are the reason why people don't break out of their old patterns, why they don't, transcend, and they might have the vision and they just keep feeling like they're bumping into the brick wall. So that's I get really excited about this work, because I feel like it can be really liberating and transformational, to move that stuff out of the way.
Well, and it sounds like you've done this. You're just teaching others and coaching others in kind of what you went through after your husband's death. And so who better to teach it than someone that has been, I mean, I look at your story and your situation now, and you were all in. You went and studied with all these people, and you really invested in yourself to help heal yourself. So there was, part of your art was the balm and the healing, but then you found mentors and guides and angels to help teach you.
Yeah.
Because whatever you were doing at that time wasn't working. You were on the hamster wheel, and you were like, I got to get off the hamster wheel, and I don't want to get back on the hamster wheel. I want to go do something different. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that are in that situation. It's easier to get back on the hamster wheel because that's what's safe and familiar and what they know, even though it's not working.
Totally. I absolutely. And that is, and I do think we need help sometimes to get off the hamster wheel. Like, even I started, I think this is the beautiful thing when we make the commitment to, wanting that connection, however you phrase it. I use language like connecting with your soul's essence or following your highest self. I don't know that I would have used that language, 18 years ago when I first started doing this, but I knew that I wanted to be happier. I knew I wanted to be doing something that was that made me feel like I was making a contribution. Like, I think that's the language I would have used back then. I want to feel like it matters what I'm doing, and and it makes me happy too. Like, those were two really important components. And so once I made that commitment, these teachers and these angels, they all started synchronistically kind of like appearing. It really is true. My experience is true that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, because that's precisely how it unfolded for me. And it's continuing. I mean, I still have teachers and people, the mentors that I work with, and I check in with my highest self on that. What's the best, is this person aligned to work with? Is this,
Mm-hmm.
is this unfolding? But I find that these things kind of organically seem to materialize.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have a daily or some frequency meditation and prayer practice to help you get back into alignment with your higher power?
I do. I mean, it has evolved over time. Like, it's not like I've done this one thing and it's been exactly the same way for all these years, but there's been some form of a practice. I mean, I would say in the beginning, it was really important to me, and it was not always easy. I talk to people all the time. I know that this is not always an easy thing. I needed to create a container and set an appointment with my soul every day. And it needed to be something that I like put on the calendar, or I got up early in the morning to do, and I would meditate, and I made that a priority. But that's not to say that life didn't get in the way sometimes, or, all of that. Over time, I added things to that. Like, for a long time, one of the teachers and synchronistic like dots that connected was several years after my husband died. I found, I got this intuitive that I needed to have a tool. I needed a tool that was going to help me kind of bridge the gap, or the language barrier, so to speak. I'm kind of speaking metaphorically, but I needed some way to help me build the trust with my highest self and my intuition. And I remember having this really clear thought that I needed to find something. And then within like the week, I found a class that was being taught of tarot cards. And I started taking a tarot card class. And that ended up being something I did for years. I mean, I still actually use them to some degree, because the archetypal energies of those cards, it's like your highest self, your soul already speaks archetype fluently. Mm-hmm. And then when we have a tool that helps us build that consciously in our mind, it's like it bridges the gap. So I felt like that was a huge practice for me. So when I was doing those, I would get up every morning and do a little prayer and a meditation, and I'd pull a few cards and write in my journal. These are things that I've done for years. Now it's just more of just a prayer and a check-in. And I feel like that connection comes through just very cleanly. Sometimes I still pull cards, but I don't use them as much as I used to. So that's what I mean when I say it evolved. So, and it continues to evolve. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I know some of our listeners may or may not have a practice. And so I'm always curious as to what other people, kind of like-minded souls that are out there doing this type of work to help others, because you're truly a teacher as well as a coach. And through your story and through your personal experiences, you're, shining a light for other people to have permission to go figure out what their soul's purpose is. Mm-hmm. And then, you're just sharing your gifts as that teacher and coach and artist. With your clients. And so you're still in the Berkshires of Massachusetts?
I am. I'm still in the Berkshires, beautiful Berkshires. It's a little gloomy outside right now, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. And, the Berkshires have such a powerful energy. And so, it's been said that it's an energy vortex. If any of our listeners haven't been there, they need to go there. A lot of the famous writers and poets and authors and even business people have over the course of history have gone to the Berkshires, and there's just something magical about it. And there is definitely some energy there. I've done a lot of writing there. Mm-hmm. And so you're in the right place,
Yeah. And it is, it's not where I grew up. I mean, it's far from where I grew up. So it's kind of interesting. I did sort of like it was another one of those like soul guided, like higher self, dots connecting stories, that brought me to the Berkshires. So it's kind of interesting how that even unfolded. And I've lived here a long time now, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place, really rich, a lot of creative people here, a lot of,
Right.
wonderful things happening in this
Right.
part of the planet.
Yeah. Well, and it's a community. It's really a good community if you are creative, whether you're a writer or artist or, whatever your gifts are. There's something about the nature there that's just amazing throughout all the seasons.
I would agree. I actually think that's one of the things that drew me here. I don't even think I knew about all the other stuff. It was just sort of like, oh, well, this is cool. There's all these creative people here once, because I did kind of move here, like almost, it was like a very spontaneous kind of thing. It wasn't like a long research, decision. But the nature was what sold me the first time I came here. It was in the spring and the lilacs were blooming and it's just gorgeous here. And I feel like that has been incredibly supportive. Like it was something I needed. And I get a lot from, and I'm not like a super outdoorsy person either, but there's something about living in this gorgeous place just feeds my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So how's your daughter and through all of this, I'm assuming she was little when her dad passed.
She was 2 when her dad passed. Yeah. And she's great. I mean, she was a big reason the Berkshires, I was drawn to the Berkshires as a place to raise her. And it was a really beautiful place for her to grow up. And she's now 20, almost 21, which I can't believe.
Wow.
I know. And she's doing really well. Really well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for asking about her.
Yeah. Well, I know that as you were dealing with your grief, she was probably, even though she was younger, her experience was different because she didn't have a dad or whatever, or her dad in her life.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of the stuff that I, been talking about, I've found these things because these were healing and supportive for me and for her. Like she's been part of that healing journey all along as well, looking for ways to support her because because this has a big impact on someone's life to lose a parent when they're really young. So, I've always been aware of trying to support her as she's grown up and gone through various stages of
mm-hmm.
processing that, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So do you also do some speaking on, I know I met you where you spoke and you were amazing. Do you do that as well as you go out into the world with kind of your teachings?
It's something that I'm wanting to do more of. I haven't been doing a lot of it. And it's interesting that you asked about that because this was one of the imprints that I had, I was kind of using that as an example because this is one of the things that I actually, it's the more I do it, the more aligned I feel like it is for my life. But back in the, at the beginning of my journey, being able to even do like what we're doing right now would have sounded, if you told me like 15 years ago that I would be doing things like this, I would have been like, no way. There was no way I will ever do that. Yeah. So this is how, so when I say that it transforms, I'm speaking from my personal experience because this was like a really huge, there was a lot of fear around that, a lot of stuff going on around that for me. And I honestly, the more I do it, the more I love it now. Like it's so enjoyable to me. And it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? It makes me joyful the more I'm able to work with my gifts of being able to teach or speak or share my knowledge. And that's stuff that lights me up. It makes me really happy. So being able to get to a place where I can do that more and I'm looking to expand it. More and more. So there will be more of this coming and it's started this year in particular. I've been doing a lot more of it.
Well, I just appreciate you agreeing to be on the podcast because I think you're just an amazing human being, but I just, I want more people out in the world to know about the Jennifer Curries of the world and the things that, not only your story, like your story is going to really help maybe trigger something for somebody who's going through something similar. Or just maybe some of the nuggets that you've shared and the gems of, just the process that you go through with your clients may, inspire them to invest in themselves, find other teachers. We are on a journey, and I think the more open people are to sort of clearing those blocks and stepping into who they really are, even as uncomfortable as it is, I'm just grateful that you said yes, because I do think that someone somewhere in the world is going to really find this episode valuable. And by you saying yes, you're helping someone else that you may not even know.
Well, I just appreciate you giving me the opportunity to say yes, and I'm thrilled to be here. And yeah, you like, this is sort of a divine appointment. I see it that way.
Absolutely.
It's a divine appointment where we're both getting to use our soul gifts right now in this moment, which is
exactly.
Yeah.
So my finale question that I ask everyone is, what's the bravest thing that you've ever done, and how does it inspire you today? Well,
you mentioned this question beforehand, so I was thinking about it a little bit. But I felt like the answer came so quickly. The thing I feel like was the bravest thing is what I was speaking about earlier, was that decision to really invest in myself and choose to listen to my intuition, to choose my highest self. Because it was like a pivotal point, like when I made that choice, and it wasn't easy. Like I have to say, like, there was a lot of noise that was kind of keeping me on the hamster wheel. I think a lot of people have this experience. There was a lot of conditioning and messaging around me that was saying, like, oh, you're going to follow your intuition now? Like, yeah, that sounds real logical. Nobody was necessarily saying it that way, but that was kind of around me. That sort of like the only way to, belief systems that the only way to know something is to go and do your research and have your facts. And we do need to have that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that following intuition means you throw that stuff out the window, but really making that choice to look for my inner wisdom first, as opposed to just defaulting into going to look for it outside of myself. And then having to try, there's some practice in trusting that. Like, there were some really scary moments along the way, even just when I moved to the Berkshires, it was like I grew up in the deep South. This is far from where all of my family is. And people were like, really? You're going to move, like that was a big deal for everyone. You're a single mother, you're going to move across the country to this place we've never heard of. And, that takes 2 days to drive from, point A to point B, or a long ride, and, it was not necessarily, I wasn't getting like a ton of, external support for that. So learning to follow that, I do feel like that was one of the bravest things I've done. And I'm so happy I did. I feel like I am a completely different person in positive ways as a result of that journey. So, there's no looking back at all. And I mean, I wouldn't change it at all. Like, those were all just the right things to do. And, and just the self-trust and the self-confidence. And I mean, this is what the essence of that empowerment that I'm talking about really is. Like, when we know that when we know that we have that touch point, within ourselves, then whatever we're trying to do we can be successful at it. We can derive joy from it, and we can just trust life and have more pleasure along the way too. So,
I think as women, sometimes we don't choose ourselves. And,
I agree. Yeah.
For whatever reason. But I think that's so important that what you said, you made a decision to invest in yourself, and you decided to listen to your inner wisdom. And I think a lot of times we don't do either. And so I love that you did it anyway. and that, like you said, you're a totally different person in a very positive way by that choice that you made way back when you really didn't have the external support that you were probably thinking that you were going to get, or maybe you knew you weren't going to get it and you did it anyway. And so thank you so much for being on the show today, Jennifer. I just, I adore your art. Everyone needs to go buy your art and your programs, because you're just so talented and you're just a kind soul. And, you know, you've made it to the other side after, you know, something really tragic happened to you when you were very young, a very young single mother. And look where you are today and all the people that you're able to help through choosing yourself, investing in yourself, and really listening to your intuition.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's such a joy. It's like a joy for me to be able to do the work that I do now. So I'm super grateful for that. And I'm really grateful to you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it today. This is like the best, like to sit around and talk about the stuff that I love to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just trying to shine a light on all the brave girls that are out there, just to hope to send some positive vibes out into the world, really share people's stories, and really just inspire other women to take bold action and to trust themselves, because we are so gifted, and sometimes we just deny our gifts, which is only hurting us because we're not able to help more people. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks so much. And thanks to everybody listening. Lots of love.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. as much as I did creating it. Each show is produced with you, the listener, in mind, as you look for inspiration and motivation from other brave souls as you pursue your desires. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave me a review on iTunes. I read every one. And check out my website, tracym.com, for more free resources. You can also join my list and sign up for my newsletter right from the homepage. Until next time, stay strong, believe in your dreams, and go do something brave.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M, and hope that you enjoyed the show. For more information about today's episode, as well as additional free resources to help you achieve greatness in your life, visit tracym.com and sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, dream big, believe in yourself, and let your brilliance shine as only you can do.